I was sitting on the edge of our bed, phone in hand, staring at her last text. I don't have to tell you where I am. It was curt, cold, something I'd never seen from her before. I typed back the only thing I could think of. All right. And then I put the phone down, try to push the unease away. At first, I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe she was stressed, maybe it was nothing. But as the minutes ticked into hours, the silence gnawed at me. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. My stomach tightened with a mix of anxiety and confusion. 5 hours later, the apartment still smelled faintly of her perfume, lingering on the couch cushions where she had been that morning. It should have been comforting, but right then it felt like a cruel reminder of her absence. I started retracing the day in my head. Every interaction, every little detail. She had been distracted during breakfast, laughing at her phone with distracted gleam in her eyes. I remembered the way she had jumped slightly when my hand brushed hers, a small hesitation I hadn't noticed before. It all seemed so trivial at the time, but now it started to sting. I checked her messages again, hoping maybe she had replied while I wasn't looking. Nothing. Then came the pang of guilt. Maybe I had been too controlling, too clingy. Maybe she just needed space. I tried to convince myself that, but the pit in my stomach refused to settle. The first real suspicion came later that evening. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed, not her number, but a notification from a chat app she sometimes used. A message preview appeared on the lock screen, just a snippet. Can't wait to see you tonight. I hope he doesn't find out. My hands froze, coffee dripping over the counter. I shouldn't have read it. I knew that, but my curiosity overpowered reason. I swiped, opened the app, and froze. There was messages between her and someone else, intimate, flippant, a secret world I had never known existed. It wasn't just flirting. It was real, deliberate, and it had been happening behind my back. My chest tightened. My mind raced. I remembered all the times she said she was working late or meeting friends. The subtle excuses, the sudden phone calls she would step away to take, the small, insignificant things that now screamed betrayal. Every shared memory suddenly felt like a lie. Every whispered, "I love you," echoing with a hollow ring. I sat on the couch, shaking, replaying every moment we had shared. The softness of her hair as she leaned on my shoulder, the quiet mornings with coffee and half-smiles. Every memory now tinged with suspicion. How could I have been so blind? The love I had felt was real, but so was her betrayal, and I couldn't reconcile the two. I confronted her later that night, when she finally came home. She avoided my eyes, a nervous tremor in her hands as she set her keys down. "We need to talk," I said, voice barely more than a whisper. She swallowed hard, finally looking at me. I didn't want to hurt you," she murmured. The words felt like knives. I wanted to shout, to demand, to make her feel the pain she had caused. But instead, I stayed quiet, listening as she confessed, as she justified her choices with excuses that sounded both fragile and selfish. She spoke of loneliness, of excitement, of feeling unseen. I wanted to hate her, but somewhere beneath the anger and heartbreak, I still remember the woman I had loved, the laughter we had shared. I realized then that this wasn't about revenge or blame. It was about self-respect, about choosing what I could no longer accept. I left the apartment that night, walking into the cold streets, the wind stinging my face, trying to burn away the lingering ache. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed to move, to reclaim a part of myself I had lost in the shadows of her deception. Days later, I started to rebuild, piece by piece. I reminded myself that love didn't have to mean sacrifice to the point of erasure. I allowed myself to grieve, not just a betrayal, but the illusion I had clung to. I learned to find comfort in solitude, in quiet mornings with coffee that didn't taste like tears. And somewhere in the quiet aftermath, I felt a strange strength settle in my chest, a reminder that life goes on, that heartbreak, however sharp, can become a lesson in resilience. I would never forget the sting of that night, or the text that started it all. "I don't have to tell you where I am," but I would also never forget the resolve it awakened within me. The knowledge that even after betrayal, even after love breaks, I could still stand, whole and unbroken.